The heavy oak doors of St. Catherine's Cathedral burst open with a sound that echoed like a gunshot through the vaulted ceiling. Every head turned, the organ music stuttered to a stop. And there, silhouetted against the bright afternoon sun, stood a man who shouldn't exist. I watched from my position at the altar as my bride-to-be, Sarah, went pale as snow. Her bouquet of white roses trembled in her hands. The man in the doorway didn't move, didn't speak. He just stood there, letting his presence do the talking. He wore a black suit, slightly rumpled, and his eyes were locked on Sarah with an intensity that made my stomach drop. "Sarah," he finally said, his voice carrying across the 200 silent guests, "we need to talk." I'd been with Sarah for 3 years. I thought I knew everything about her, every scar, every secret, every shadow in her past. She told me about her difficult childhood, her struggles with anxiety, her dream of becoming a photographer. But she'd never mentioned him. And now, as I looked at her face, I realized there was a whole chapter of her life I'd never been allowed to read. "Who is that?" I whispered. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her lips moved soundlessly, and for a moment I thought she might faint. The man took a step forward, then another. The guests parted like the Red Sea, their faces a mixture of shock and morbid curiosity. My best man, Jake, grabbed my arm. "Should I call security?" But something in Sarah's expression stopped me from giving the order. It wasn't just fear in her eyes, it was recognition and guilt, deep, crushing guilt. 3 hours earlier, everything had been perfect. I'd stood in the groom's suite, adjusting my tie for the 100th time, while Jake poured champagne and made increasingly inappropriate jokes about married life. The June sun streamed through the windows, painting everything in gold. I remembered thinking that this was the happiest day of my life. "You're sure about this, right?" Jake had asked, suddenly serious. "More sure than I've ever been about anything," I'd replied, and I'd meant it. Sarah was everything I'd ever wanted. Brilliant, beautiful, kind. She made me laugh. She challenged me. She'd transformed my lonely bachelor existence into something meaningful. When I'd proposed to her on a beach in Maui, watching the sunset paint her face in shades of amber and rose, she'd cried and said yes, and I'd felt like I'd won the lottery. But now, as this stranger walked down the aisle toward us, I wondered if I'd ever really known her at all. "My name is David Winters," the man announced, his voice steady despite the chaos he'd created. He stopped about 10 feet away from the altar. Up close, I could see he was older than me, maybe 40 to my 32. He had graying temples and tired eyes, the kind that had seen too much. And 7 years ago, I married the woman standing at that altar. The congregation erupted. Gasps, whispers, a few shocked cries. Sarah's mother stood up from her seat in the front row, her hand over her mouth. My own parents looked horrified. "That's impossible," I said, finding my voice. "Sarah's never been married." David's eyes shifted to me for the first time. There was no malice in them, just a deep sadness. "That's what she told you, isn't it? That she'd never been married, that she had no skeletons in her closet." He turned back to Sarah. "Tell him the truth. Tell him about Seattle, about the fire, about what you did." Sarah's bouquet fell from her hands, scattering roses across the white carpet like drops of blood. She swayed, and I caught her elbow to steady her. "Sarah," I said quietly, urgently, "what is he talking about?" But she was somewhere else entirely, her eyes unfocused and glassy. I'd seen her have panic attacks before. We'd worked through them together. But this was different. This was a complete shutdown. The priest, Father Michael, stepped forward nervously. "Perhaps we should adjourn to the sacristy." "No," David interrupted. "No more secrets. No more lies. These people deserve to know who they're celebrating today." He reached into his jacket pocket, and for one terrible moment, I thought he might pull out a weapon, but instead he produced a folded piece of paper. I have our marriage certificate, dated March 15th, 2017. We were married in Seattle, Washington, St. James Cathedral. It was a small ceremony, just her brother and my sister as witnesses. I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet. Sarah doesn't have a brother. She told you she was an only child, didn't she? David's laugh was bitter. Her brother's name is Marcus. He's currently serving a 15-year sentence in Washington State Penitentiary for arson. The word hung in the air like smoke. What happened next would play in my mind for months afterward, a scene I'd replay over and over, looking for the moment where everything went wrong. Sarah finally found her voice. "Stop," she whispered. Then, louder, "Stop it! Stop talking!" "I can't," David said, and there were tears in his eyes now. "I kept your secret for 7 years. I let you disappear. I let you reinvent yourself, but I can't let you do this to another person. I can't let you destroy another man's life the way you destroyed mine." "I didn't destroy your life," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "What happened was an accident. You know it was an accident." "Was it?" David's voice cracked. "Was it really? Because the fire inspector found evidence of accelerant, and you were the last person in the building." The cathedral had gone completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I looked at Sarah, really looked at her, and tried to find the woman I'd fallen in love with beneath this stranger's accusations. "What building?" I asked. "What fire?" Sarah turned to me, and the anguish in her face was so raw it hurt to look at. "Michael, I wanted to tell you so many times, but I didn't know how. I didn't know how to explain." "Explain what?" My voice came out harsher than I intended. "Explain that you were married, that you have a brother in prison, that you were involved in some kind of fire." "It was our photography studio," David said when Sarah couldn't continue. "We ran it together. It was our dream. Both of us were photographers. We'd built it from nothing, spent every penny we had on equipment, on space, on building our reputation. And then, one night, 3 years into our marriage, it burned to the ground." He pulled out his phone, swiped through some screens, then held it up. Even from several feet away, I could see the image. A building engulfed in flames, smoke billowing into a night sky. "The fire started at 2 a.m., David continued. "Sarah said she'd gone back to get her phone, which she'd left there earlier. She said she smelled smoke, tried to put it out, but it was already too big. She barely escaped." He paused. "But there were witnesses who saw her car parked outside for 30 minutes before the fire started, and the accelerant pattern suggested multiple points of origin. Professional investigation, someone who knew what they were doing." "I didn't start that fire," Sarah said, and there was steel in her voice now. "I was cleared, David. The investigation was inconclusive. They never charged me with anything." "Because you're brilliant," David said softly. "Because you covered your tracks. Because you knew exactly how to make it look accidental." He turned to me. "Did she ever tell you she studied chemistry in college? That she worked in a lab for 2 years before switching to photography?" I felt sick. "No." "Michael, please." Sarah grabbed my hand. "Let me explain. In private, not like this." But I pulled away. "Why? Why would you burn down your own studio?" "The insurance money," David said flatly. "We were drowning in debt. We'd taken out loans we couldn't repay. The business was failing, and Sarah didn't handle failure well. She never has." What happened in the next few minutes felt like watching a car crash in slow motion. Sarah's mother rushed up to the altar, trying to pull her daughter away, to shield her from the staring crowd. Jake was on his phone, probably calling the police. My mother was crying. Guests were standing, gathering their things, whispering frantically to each other. And I just stood there, paralyzed, trying to process what I was hearing. "Sarah," I said finally, "is any of this true?" She looked at me with eyes full of tears. "Some of it," Not all of it. It's more complicated than he's making it sound. Then uncomplicate it. She took a shaky breath. Yes, I was married to David. Yes, our studio burned down. Yes, I was investigated. But I didn't start that fire, Michael. I swear to you, I didn't start it. She shot a venomous look at David. What he's not telling you is that he had just as much motive as I did. More even. He had a gambling problem. He'd lost almost $50,000 in 6 months. We were about to lose everything because of him. David flinched. That's true. I did have a problem, but I got help. I went to therapy. I tried to save us, Sarah. You were the one who gave up. You were the one who... He stopped himself, his jaw clenching. Who what? I demanded. There was a long pause. Then David said very quietly, She tried to frame me for the arson. She planted evidence in my car, receipts for accelerant, matches, even a partially burned rag. If I hadn't had an airtight alibi for that night, I'd be in prison instead of Marcus. Sarah's face crumbled. That's not true. That's not. Marcus did that. Marcus was trying to help me, to shift suspicion away from me, and he went too far. He's the one who planted those things. I had no idea until afterward. Your brother confessed to starting the fire, David said. He took the fall for you. He went to prison for you, and you let him. He insisted. Sarah's voice rose to a near scream. He said he was already in trouble with the law, that he had priors, that it would be easier for him to take the blame. I tried to stop him, but he wouldn't listen, and then it was too late. Once he confessed, I couldn't take it back without destroying both of us. The cathedral had become a circus. Half the guests had left. The other half were watching with undisguised fascination. I saw my cousin filming on her phone and wanted to throw it across the room. So you ran, I said slowly, piecing it together. You left Seattle, changed your name. I didn't change my name, Sarah interrupted. I just started using my middle name. My full name is Sarah Elizabeth Monroe. I used to go by Elizabeth. When I moved to Boston, I started going by Sarah, that's all. It was such a small detail, but somehow it made everything worse, the calculation behind it, the premeditation. And you were going to marry me, I said, without telling me any of this. You were going to let me find out. What? Never. When your brother got out of prison? When your past caught up with you? I was going to tell you, Sarah said desperately. After the wedding, on our honeymoon, I had it all planned. I was just waiting for the right moment. The right moment. I felt anger rising in me, hot and righteous. There was never going to be a right moment, Sarah, because you don't tell someone you love them and then hide something like this. You don't build a life with someone on a foundation of lies. Everything else was real, she pleaded. My feelings for you, our relationship, everything we built together, that was all real. The past was the past. I thought I could leave it behind. David spoke up again, his voice thick with emotion. She sent me divorce papers 2 weeks after she left Seattle, had them delivered to my apartment with a note that said, I'm sorry, I need a fresh start. No forwarding address, no phone number. I signed them because I was devastated, because I thought maybe she was right, maybe we both needed to move on. But then I saw your engagement announcement in the Globe last month. He looked at me. I almost didn't come. I thought maybe she's changed, maybe she really has left that person behind. But then I remembered how she made me feel, like I was crazy, like I couldn't trust my own instincts. And I couldn't let her do that to you. I don't remember making the decision to leave. One moment I was standing at the altar, the next I was walking down the aisle, my feet carrying me automatically toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Sarah calling my name, heard the rustle of her dress as she tried to follow, heard her mother telling her to let me go. Jake caught up with me in the parking lot. Hey, man, wait! I stopped next to my car, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't get the key in the lock. What do I do? I asked him. What the hell do I do? I don't know, Jake said honestly. But you don't have to decide right now. You need time to process this, to figure out what's real and what's not. Is any of it real? I looked back at the cathedral where guests were streaming out, their phones already at their ears, spreading the news. 3 years, Jake. 3 years, and I never knew. Maybe she was telling the truth about some of it, Jake offered weakly. Maybe it really was her brother. Maybe she really is innocent. Does it matter? I asked. Even if she didn't start the fire, she lied about being married. She lied about having a brother. She let me propose to her, plan a wedding, invite 200 people to celebrate a relationship built on deception. I finally got the car door open. That's not love. I don't know what it is, but it's not love. I spent that night in a hotel room, ignoring calls from Sarah, from her mother, from my own parents. I ordered room service and sat on the bed, staring at my wedding ring, the one I'd never actually gotten to put on her finger, turning it over and over in my hands. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was David. I'm sorry for ruining your wedding. I know this wasn't the right way to handle it, but I couldn't let her do to you what she did to me. If you want to talk, I'll be at the Starbucks on Newbury Street tomorrow at 10 a.m. No pressure, just an offer. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, I'll be there. David was already seated when I arrived, 2 coffees on the table in front of him. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept either. Black, right? He said, pushing one of the cups toward me. I guessed. Thanks. I sat down heavily. This is weird. Yeah. He gave a short laugh. Not how I expected to spend my Sunday, that's for sure. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said, tell me about her. The real her. The one I never met. David leaned back in his chair, his eyes distant. She was magnetic. That's the word I always use. When Sarah walked into a room, you couldn't look away. She was passionate about everything, her work, her relationships, her dreams. But the flip side of that passion was intensity. When things were good, they were incredible. When they were bad, they were catastrophic. There was no middle ground with her. Was she violent? I asked. Did she ever hurt you? Not physically, but emotionally. He exhaled slowly. She knew exactly where to strike, exactly what to say to make you doubt yourself. After the fire, I spent 6 months in therapy trying to figure out what was real, trying to separate what actually happened from what she'd convinced me happened. I thought about my relationship with Sarah. There had been moments, rare ones, but they existed, when she'd said things that stung more than they should have. When she'd twisted an argument in a way that left me feeling guilty, even though I knew I'd done nothing wrong. I'd written it off as normal relationship conflict. But now I wondered, do you think she started the fire? I asked. David was quiet for a long time. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe Marcus did it to help her. Maybe it really was an accident. But what I do know is that she was capable of it. She was desperate, she was angry, and she talked about the insurance money more than once. When I'd joke about it, but maybe we should just burn the place down and collect the check, she never laughed. She'd get this look in her eyes, like she was actually considering it. A chill ran down my spine. I'd seen that look before. When we talked about her photography business not taking off as fast as she'd hoped, when she'd mentioned her student loans, that calculation, that coldness. So, what do I do? I asked. Do I try to salvage this? Do I give her a chance to explain? David met my eyes. That's not my call to make, but I'll tell you what I wish someone had told me. Trust your gut. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And don't let her convince you that your instincts are the problem. Sarah's brilliant at that, at making you feel like you're the crazy one for questioning her. I met with Sarah 3 days later at her request, in the empty reception hall we'd rented for our wedding that never was. She looked smaller somehow, fragile in jeans and a sweater instead of the white dress I'd last seen her in. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "I needed to hear your side," I replied. The whole truth this time. No omissions, no half-truths. Everything. And she told me. It took 2 hours, and by the end, both of us were crying. Yes, she'd been married to David. Yes, their studio had burned down. Yes, her brother had confessed to starting the fire, but she maintained she'd had no knowledge of his plans, that he'd acted on his own to protect her from the investigation. She'd left Seattle because she couldn't bear the guilt of her brother's sacrifice, because everywhere she looked reminded her of what she'd lost. "I should have told you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I know that. But every time I tried, I got scared. I thought you'd leave me. I thought you'd think I was broken or damaged or a criminal, so I kept quiet, and the longer I waited, the harder it became." "Did you love David?" I asked. "I thought I did, but it was toxic. We brought out the worst in each other. With you, I felt like I could be better. I was better. Except you weren't," I said gently. "You were still lying, still hiding. That's not better, Sarah. That's just different." She nodded, unable to speak. "I need time," I told her. "I need to figure out if I can trust you again, if I even want to try." "I understand," she whispered. "It's been 6 months now." Sarah moved back to Seattle to be closer to her brother, who's up for parole in 3 years. We talk occasionally, brief, polite conversations that dance around what we lost. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right choice, if I should have fought harder for us, found a way to forgive her, built something new from the ashes of what we had. But then I remember standing at that altar, watching my future dissolve in front of 200 witnesses. I remember the feeling of betrayal, sharp and clean as a knife. And I know that some broken things can't be fixed, no matter how much we want them to be. David and I, improbably, have become friends. We meet for coffee every few weeks, 2 men bound by the same woman, comparing scars and swapping stories. He's dating someone new, a teacher named Rachel, who makes him laugh. He seems lighter now, unburdened. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time, learning to trust my instincts again, learning that love without honesty isn't really love at all. And sometimes, late at night, I think about Sarah standing at that altar in her white dress, roses scattered at her feet, her whole carefully constructed world crashing down around her. Part of me still loves her, the her I thought I knew. But I'm learning to mourn that person the way you'd mourn someone who died, because in a way, she did. The Sarah I loved never really existed. She was a beautiful fiction, a story told so convincingly that even the storyteller started to believe it. And me? I'm still figuring out who I am without her, who I can be when I'm not trying to solve someone else's mysteries or heal someone else's wounds. The doors of St. Catherine's Cathedral are closed to me now. But somewhere out there, other doors are opening, and this time I'm going to make sure I know what and who I'm walking toward before I step through. If you made it this far, don't forget to leave your comment, your like, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new stories. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.